Okay. Sometimes we get calls here at our office because I've been, connected to WFG for so many years. And people say, well, I want to sell insurance, but if I go with WFG, my commissions will be so much lower initially as opposed to if I go to a traditional company where I'll make 3 times the money. Why should people go to WFG as opposed to go the traditional route if they want to sell life insurance for a living?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is when you're with a traditional company, and I'm assuming you mean a life insurance company.
Yes.
So when you're with a life insurance company, you are typically required to sell at least a certain amount of their particular product. If you're, like for example, in New York Life is very popular. You're an agent with New York Life, you have to sell all, or if not, at least a part of all your sales to be New York Life product. We don't have that. We don't have a mandatory, maybe someone will decide to sell IUL from Transamerica, but nobody's dictating that. If I decide to go sell Nationwide or Pac Life or any other company that we have access to, we have free reign to decide what's the best for the client. The other thing is quotas. Most of those companies, in order to keep you on the books, require you to produce a certain amount. And, in the life insurance business, you'll see a lot of turnover. People that come into the business and leave, come into the business and leave. And we have that here too, but there's a much easier transition for someone to be able to start out where, like myself, where you know nothing about financial services and be able to ease your way in without having that pressure of, I have to sell, I have to, make a quota, otherwise I'm out of a job. Here you can start. You can hopefully do enough to make it a living, but say you have a slow start. You can still have the support of a full-time job or another business or, something else that's keeping you going while you actually get into the business and have a really good grasp on it. So that's one of the major differences about how getting into the business of life insurance would differ in the traditional industry. I think also another big difference is the environment. A lot of times it's a selling environment versus a personal development environment. One of the things I love about World Financial Group is that it's really a personal development program with a massive compensation package attached. It's really where you're in an environment that you are going to grow. I personally feel that if you took everything away from me right now, money, accolades, titles, everything that I've earned over the last decade, there would be one thing that would be left with me that you can't take away, and that's my personal development. That's what I've worked on for myself, and with the assistance and influence of mentors, of reading books like yours, and just really learning from as much as I can. That's something that's priceless. You can't put a price tag to that. And I don't know of any company, insurance or otherwise, that pours in as much and really makes sure that people are developing along with their businesses as we do here.
What do you say to the people, Fradel, that say, well, WFG is a hard sell culture? I went to a business presentation meeting and they really pushed me to sign an AMA or an associate agreement to join the company for $100. They really pushed me. It seemed like a real hard sell. And then they go online, of course, and they write that. What do you say to those people that think WFG is a hard sell culture?
I would say, one, if you signed on the dotted line, that's your decision. I think a lot of times when people make a decision, they have to own it. But in terms of a hard sale, we're so passionate about that this is the best opportunity. And so, anybody who maybe felt that way, maybe it was just someone's passion pouring into them in the sense that they really felt so strongly about something that they were, putting it out there. Personally, I don't need to hard sell people. I actually expect people to want to be a part of this. When I present to someone and I do the corporate overview and explain to them who we are and what we do and the opportunities that exist with our firm, the expectation is they want this. Not that I have to actually push it onto them. And the passion can come through even with that in the sense that, they see that someone's so passionate about it. Sometimes that sells even more than what you're actually talking about in terms of the company and everything like that.
Sure. What's the best advice you could give someone who's really looking at this and they're excited about it, but they're anxious? What's the best advice you can give that person?
I think the best advice is don't think too much. And I know that that's sometimes, could be a bad thing because sometimes mistakes are made if you don't think. But I think that a lot of times people overthink it. If you think about how people make decisions, a quick decision and slow to leave a decision is typically the best way to do it, because if you're uncertain about something, you're wavering, you're in between. I mean, it's kind of like the terminology that when they say sitting on a fence. I mean, if you picture someone sitting on the fence, that's pretty painful, right? Mm-hmm. Like literally. And that's the same thing when you're in doubt. When you're kind of thinking about something, should I do this? Should I not do it? It's not as strong when you make a decision, even if you're going through tough times and maybe you have those moments where you're like, is this for me or not? But if you still keep going with the decision and not think so much about it, you'll find that it's a lot easier. The other thing is, you only really know if it is for you or not if you do it. If you don't do it, you will actually never know. And, it's been asked people on their deathbeds, what's their biggest regret? It wasn't doing things, it was the things they didn't try. And so if you're someone that fits what you get out of WFG, meaning if you're someone that does want more, because there's some people are satisfied with what they have and that's not the right fit. But if you are the right fit, meaning you want more things for yourself and your family, you want financial freedom, you want a lifestyle, you want to learn, you want to be able to become more developed in business or personal life, then you need to try and see if this is a fit so that you can get that outcome. So as long as you want the outcome, I think that you will not know unless you try.
Okay. In terms of your career, what have been the biggest obstacles that you faced with building WFG?
I think it was different things at different times. Starting out, it was certainly my nature of being shy. I really had to consciously work on that. And I did it with the help of, obviously my mentors and people around me, but I really watched everybody. In fact, I remember one of my mentors kind of seeing me in a meeting, and I was literally like, if everyone was here, I was kind of on the side and just watching everyone. And he asked someone, who is that girl? I'm like, oh, she was the top producer last month. He's like, I never even met her. But that was who I was. I sat there and watched everyone. What was this one doing? And then I would repeat it. And I even watched some of my own associates, the way they prospected. In fact, one of my associates, she was amazing at talking to people. And like I said, I was shy, so I actually learned how to prospect from her. And so I would learn from everyone, didn't matter who. There was people in the office that I walked into their office and just kind of sat there and said, hey, is it okay if I sit here and watch you? And just literally like a sponge, soaked it all in to really learn. So that's how I overcame the first obstacle. The second one, which I think was actually harder, because now it wasn't just about me, right? That was handling me, right? I didn't have to worry about other people. I just had to learn how to overcome my shyness. The second one was leadership, was really leading people, and not just leading followers, but leading leaders. And that was one of probably like the next big challenge for me in my business, was really learning how to lead. And definitely it helped to read books and, but really what actually helped me was recruiting and recruiting leaders. It's one thing to recruit and have a team of followers. It's another thing to have a team of leaders. And once you start having them and you're open to being in partnership rather than just, being the only winner, I think that really helps, and having an environment and cultivating that environment of winning.
How about emotional low points? What was some of your emotional low points when you're building the business?
I think I had one when I hit a plateau. It was actually about probably 2.5 to 3 years in the business. I was making multiple six-figure income, 22, 23 years old. And it was kind of like, now what, right? Like I had pretty much everything I wanted, and so I felt like I needed a challenge to take me to the next level. And that was actually when I made the decision to move back to New York, where WFG didn't really have much going on there. And that was what got me out of that plateau. And I say it was an emotional low point because, when you hit a certain point, sometimes it feels very alone. Even though you're surrounded by people, sometimes in leadership, you'll find that, you're surrounded by people, but you're really alone because you have to be the one to step up and do everything. And I think that for me, I really thrive on challenges. So having that challenge and having to build it again from scratch, and in a new territory and in a place where pretty much no one had done it before. That really got me going and lifted me out of that. Other emotional times was really, just more of like little things. It wasn't so much big things, but sometimes, actually, I remember one, this was early on in the business, but I remember it was not my first recruit, but my first like perfect recruit. It's the one that you think like, this is it. It was a great family. They were, married. Both of them were interested in the business. They had 2 kids. They had the home. They had everything that was be like an ideal family for WFG. And they came on board. They became clients. They introduced me to their whole family, their friends, and we were in the process of training them to become the next leaders. And literally one day, they just, the guy called me and said, "We're canceling all our policies. Wow. We're out of the business." And there wasn't even like an explanation. And I really felt like I became friends with them. And so, like I told you before, I try to analyze, like, what did I do wrong? And I realized I didn't do anything wrong. And sometimes you do everything that you're supposed to do, but there's external factors that affect the business. And in that space, I said, you know what? Now I'm just going to do better with a better person, someone that has a little bit more staying power, as we call it, right? Someone that is actually a little more grounded and not going to listen to anything that they hear without vetting it first. And that's really what happened. And so it made me stronger for the next time. I had another one that I had this girl that she was my first senior marketing director that I promoted after I became a senior marketing director, which is about a month or 2 later. And her goal was to make $10,000 in a month. And she did it the month she hit SMD. And I was so excited for her. I was, that was her goal. We made a big deal.
Sure.
And after that month, I never heard from her again.
Wow.
Witness protection program, like nowhere to be found. I mean, literally never heard from her. And so, that one puzzled me even more, because here's someone who reached success in their eyes, right? And I said, how could someone quit when they reach success? And, I started studying that. I started asking people. And what I realized was some people fear success. That's one. Or that was their only goal, and they had nothing beyond that. And so it taught me really to make sure that not only for myself, but also for my associates, I'm constantly stretching their vision. Their goal is 10,000. Well, what if you can make 20, right? If your goal is 20, what if you can make 50? Because if you're not growing, you're dying. And those were some of the lessons that I learned in those emotional times.
So if you had to start over again, what would you do differently?
I think I would do more for longer. There was levels where I reached a certain point of success at that time and kind of slowed down. I think concentrated efforts in a shorter period of time are much more effective than the same amount of efforts stretched over a longer period of time. And so while I did that in certain time frames, if I did it over again, I would do it for longer, more compact time frames.
What's been your greatest joy in WFG?
I think, really being able to overcome personal, personal development, and really overcoming certain things. For example, when I first started WFG, I weighed about 270 pounds. Like I said, I was very shy. So literally that transformation of, not just a bank account, because I was $30,000 in debt. So really, if you put it on paper, it's 2 different people. So I would say that would be my first one. And then the second one is watching leaders develop. People that I never take credit for it, because I think if someone, makes it in business or in WFG, it's their efforts, but maybe having some influence on it, maybe having some impact on them getting to where they want to be. As I build leaders, that's my greatest joy now.
How about your favorite client story?
Well, I have a woman. When I met her, she had just gotten divorced, and but had like a big family, kids, grandkids, everything. And she literally was so lost. And I have a big passion for helping women in the business, because there's a shortage of not only information, but also people that speak the female language in the financial industry, specifically even for our demographics, but even just in the industry as a whole. And she had never once talked to anybody about money. She was married to a man who ran a large corporation, was quite well-to-do, but they never talked about money. She never ran anything. He took care of everything. And she was a school teacher. She still did work. School teacher had, a plan with the school, but that was about it. And then when she got divorced, she was completely did not know about what to do, how to manage her money. Not only that, at the same time, her mom died. And so her mom left her, not too much, but maybe about $50,000 or $60,000. But her mom was a teacher too. So her mom never taught her and didn't know how to properly position things either. So that was when I met her. And, by the time we were done, not only did I save her from losing about half of what her mom left her because of taxes, but also positioned her in a place where she was able to foresee her retirement. She never imagined, now that her husband was gone, being able to stop working. The only reason she would stop was because he was there. And then we really sat down and put a plan together where she can see it. And now she's retired. She's enjoying her time with her grandkids. And so that was just really something that was very impactful for me. And I know it impacted her a lot too. Sometimes in this business, because what we do is so long term, we're doing it and doing it and doing it, and we don't necessarily even see the results of it, because that could happen generations later.
Sure.
But that was one example where I really was able to see the results of it right then and there.
How would you describe WFG's unique culture?
I would describe it as happy all the time. Sometimes my office is right on Wall Street, my main office, and sometimes people walk in there and they're expecting this, uptight financial firm, and they walk in and everyone's very professional, wearing suits and ties and looking nice, but suddenly everyone's, high-fiving and, having fun, and there's crazy music. I actually have a CPA that's next door to me. And for years, he would never talk to us because we played, this music that was loud. And one day he met me. He never met the owner of the business. And one day it was a snowy day. So one of those storm days, those are my favorite days in the office because I can sit down and focus because only the serious people are there. And it was me and him, literally the only people on the whole floor. And he peeks his head into my office and he says, because I have a picture, we have all of the pictures of our directors in the office. So he's like, "That's you. Are you the owner?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, I'm Michael from next door." I said, "Oh." I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna rip my head off right now." And we start talking, and we found that we had a lot of things in common. We're both business owners. We're both in New York, the hardest place to do business, but the best place. And we started talking, and he was just so puzzled at the fact that after talking to me, he was impressed. He said, you sound like a really great businesswoman. I'm so surprised I hear loud music coming from your office, and you have you have tons of people coming in and out." I said, "Yeah, I'm proud of that." And it really solidified for me that, yeah, we do have a very different culture. But it's a culture that, if you're going to do something, why not do it in a happy place? Why not do it where you can have fun? Why not do it where you can have everything? Many times in corporate America, or even in any business, it's business and then everything else is outside of that. Family, fun. We throw everything in the mix. We have family days. Kids come to the office. We have exciting events. Where we're always mixing fun and business, because why not? It should be. If you're going to do something and you're going to be devoted to a business, or, really working on something and putting your life's work into it, then shouldn't it be part of your life? That's what we believe.
Sure. Well, what's your favorite rags to riches story in WFG?
Man, there's a lot of them. I think every story almost. Everyone has something that I don't know that I have a specific favorite. I just love the fact that every story has something different, especially a different culture. You'll literally see every nationality. And when I say see, I'm not just talking about the people in WFG. I'm talking about the successful millionaires, people that are really doing it and making it happen. Literally every single age, culture, religion, background, it's there. And there's a rags to riches story to go with it. And that's really, to me, what's so amazing. I grew up in a very sheltered home where the only people that were allowed to be our friends, our neighbors, the people that we talked to were white Jewish people. And up until you're married, it's also only female, right? Because, we weren't allowed to speak to boys as young kids. So being able to be exposed to so many different cultures. I remember my first year in WFG, I think I tasted Mexican food for the first time, Indian food, like everything, and just being in people's homes and getting to experience that was just so incredible. And then you look at, from a leadership perspective, people in all those cultures really doing it. And so there's really no excuse. At the end of the day, nobody can come into WFG and say, well, I'm different. For me, it's not going to work. People sometimes said that about New York. Well, New York is a hard place. Yeah, it is, but we're doing it, right? There's going to be different challenges for different people in different places, but everyone can make it happen as long as they want to.
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of the opportunity?
That is one of those things. This is not one of those things. This is a business. I had someone come into my office and say, I can help your company. I'm very professional with those type of businesses. I said, what's those type of businesses? This is not a type of business. This is a professional business that actually you probably don't know anything about because we're so unique. Our platform is so unique that I don't think, unless you've taken an inside view, you actually don't know what we're about. So I think the most misunderstood thing about people that really haven't taken a chance, and I don't mean just get an agent code. I'm talking about get into the business, do the business, get licensed, really get your hands and feet into it, is that you think that this is just one of those things. My personal belief is that, we're a pretty big company, but as we grow, it's going to get harder to be part of this. I think there's just too much value in what we do that it's going to be so easy just to be able to be a part of this, in the sense of getting started and being able to qualify. I think that it's a privilege, not something that's just there.
Why do you think that so many people in the 12-month period, 80% of course of the people drop out within 12 months of signing an AMA, as you know? Why is that? Why do so many people drop out of such a great opportunity, if it's such a great opportunity?
I think it's our society. We have a very instant gratification. I want something now. And although we have that side too, where you can actually make money pretty quickly here, but it's not a job. Right? In a job, once you get in, you're given first and then you give, right? You get the paycheck and you put the hours. Here, you got to give first in order to get. And so I think that our society and what we've always been taught, your employer should provide, what are the benefits? What are they giving you, right? That's a term that's used a lot. That's not what is here. Right? This is an entrepreneurial business, but there's some things that feel like a corporate structure because of the hybrid model that might make people feel that way, that they should give me something, or I'm an employee, or everybody's independent, right? Everybody's their own business owner, but they're not on their own. They have a system, they have a platform, they have something to plug into. And I think that sometimes because that's there, the expectation could be different. So people's expectations are not necessarily managed for an entrepreneur, they're managed for an employee. And so the mentality is different, and really moving someone from an employee mindset to a business owner mindset, that's like an unlearning, right? And especially what people have grown up to believe, that, you go to school, get a degree, get a great job, and life is great, work 30 years, pay off your mortgage, retire. That doesn't happen anymore, but it's still taught. So that expectation, and people living in that delusional state that might still happen for them when it's not happening at their job, and then they come into a business and they expect it to happen, but with the same aspect of their job. And I think that that's really what happens to many, many people. The second thing is that people think that they know better. One of the great benefits of our platform is a mentorship platform, where you have people who are successful using the platform that you're trying to use. And so they're guiding you in a way that is going to work. But you being the new associate, think that there is a better way. there's a faster way, there's a quicker way. And so I think that takes people off course. Eventually, if they stay, they end up getting back on course most of the time. But sometimes they don't because it doesn't work, right? And then they blame the system and the company, for them not being successful. When in reality, they were given the successful route, but they just didn't take it. I even have people who make, $250,000 and up in my business that when they started, they thought they knew their own way, right? And then it just took them an extra year to get to where they're at because they then realized, wait a minute, this is not working, but I still want to do this. So they were one of the ones that stuck around versus sometimes people don't. I think for me, starting out in the business at 20 years old, my differentiating factor of making a six-figure income my first year as opposed to taking 3 years was the fact that anything I was told, I did it. Hard, easy, didn't matter. Like, you tell me what to do, this is what I'm doing. I think maybe I had an advantage that I knew nothing. So everything was, wasn't comparing to something else.
Right.
But the fact was that coachability in a proven system is the key to success.
How about the licensing rates? As you know, the licensing rate, less than 7% of the people that sign an AMA actually get licensed. Why is that?
We were just talking about this the other day. I think it's the intention for signing the AMA. Sometimes people sign that AMA without even ever having the intention to get licensed or even knowing about it. Sometimes the person that's bringing them into the business didn't properly explain that this is a licensed business.
But that's such a huge percentage. I mean,
it's massive.
I mean, why do you think it's so big?
It's, people just come in and expect, again, that easy way. And I think a lot of times, again, the licensing, it's a certification, right? People put so much emphasis on degrees, but not necessarily certifications. I know even in our field, things like CFP and, CHFC and CLU and all the 3-letter designations.
Right.
I have people who come into my office, especially being on Wall Street, that want to be in financial services. And immediately what they're studying after getting an MBA or a degree is a certification. And while that's needed in some fields, for what we do, it's a license. And so I think the thought process, and I know for me, I never heard of getting licensed before coming into the business. So I think people coming from other industries that don't necessarily think of it as licensing. The other thing is they don't focus on it. They don't study. They don't do the work. When someone has a job and a bunch of things going on, if they don't put the time into it, if they don't actually carve out time, it's not going to happen. I always tell new prospects or new associates that this can be a part-time opportunity, but not a sometime opportunity. Because if you treat it as a sometime thing, you're going to get sometime results. And so many times that's what people do coming into this business is, again, they see the ability of what it can bring them, but don't necessarily take the time to do what it takes to actually get there.
Is there anything else you'd like to say a question I haven't asked you, let's say, that you'd like to say to the person who's sitting there, they're on the fence, they're not sure if they want to do this, they're excited, but they're not sure, they're anxious? Anything else you'd like to say based on all your years of experience and success?
I would like to say that, go back to that first feeling. Go back to the first gut feeling, not the one you had once you thought about it, not the one you had once you talked to someone. Like, in your heart, when you heard about World Financial Group, about our opportunity, about what we do for families, about what it can do for your family, what did you feel? Like, can you actually go back to that feeling and remember that? And then go with that. And if it was bad, then don't do it, But if it was something good, if it felt like this can be it for me, this is my way out, this is really, maybe I found it, or maybe I've been found, then go with that. Because that's really the true feeling without any external influences that could really make a difference, not only for your life, but for many other people as well.
That's great. Fradel, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Great job.